Good afternoon, and we are excited to welcome you to our part two of our four-part Managing Stress workshop series. I'm Nisha Jones, proud to serve as coordinator in the Office of Student Affairs here at the Metropolitan Campus. Today, I am joined by Ms. Lisa Hussamadeen and Dr. Terry Webb. Lisa Hussamadeen currently serves as the Student Advisor for Student Accessibility Services at the Metropolitan Campus here at Tri-C. She has over 12 years of experience in counseling and disability services. Ms. Hussamadeen assists individuals with disabilities by providing reasonable accommodations for educational purposes per the Americans with Disabilities Act. She also brings years of experience working with clients of diverse backgrounds to help each individual improve their current circumstances. Ms. Hussamadeen is a proud alumnus of Tri-C. She later transferred to obtain a 4-year degree and graduated from Cleveland State University with a master's degree in counseling. She holds a license in professional counseling for the state of Ohio. Ms. Hussamadeen's areas of specialties are helping clients with anxiety, depression, stress reduction, attentional deficits, and self-esteem issues. She is passionate about assisting students with removing barriers to education and helping to level the playing ground so that students who learn differently have an equal chance at success as all students. Ms. Hussamadeen believes every individual should be provided information and assistance to overcome obstacles and not be defined by their challenges. Dr. Terry Webb currently serves as the Assistant Dean of Counseling, Psychological, and Student Accessibility Services here at Tri-C. Dr. Webb has more than 30 years of secondary and post-secondary supervision as well as teaching experience. He is an expert in motivation, overcoming anxiety, and various issues surrounding minority males overcoming self-imposed limitations. In addition, he is a passionate motivational speaker, educator, pastor, visionary, organizer, and counselor who sees value and potential in everyone. Dr. Webb is a licensed professional counselor for mental health through Ohio and holds board certification from the National Board for Certified Counselors Incorporated. He is also a certified clinical trauma professional. In addition, he is trained in mental health first aid. He has worked as a family therapist, providing life skills and counseling service to broken families. He focuses on helping families and individuals heal, also exploring how non-cognitive factors impact relationships. He also conducts workshops on personal branding, self-esteem, self-determination, overcoming self-imposed limitations, empathy in education, and why college. During today's workshop, we identify factors that cause us to experience a stress reaction. This workshop does not provide treatment advice. This workshop merely assembles the evidence compiled and analyzed by others. More importantly, mental health conditions are complex. People differ widely in their conditions and responses, and interactions with other conditions and treatments are best evaluated by a qualified mental health professional. Therefore, if any material presented causes you to experience any discomfort, you should contact a mental health professional immediately. We look forward to hearing from you today, so please, to our live audience, jot down any questions that you may have and come up to our mic and ask them at the end during our question and answer session. To our virtual audience, please take to the chat and we will also have those questions addressed as well. So at this time, without further ado, I'd like to bring Lisa Hussamadeen up to the stage.
Thank you, Nishay, for that lovely introduction. And again, welcome to our second session of our stress series. So today we will be focusing on some of the causes of stress. And in the next session, we will focus on how you can deal with or reduce some of those stressors. I'm going to see if I can get the clicker working correctly. All right. Okay, so let's talk about stress and anxiety. Initially, let's go ahead. We're going to focus on stress. So stress is that state of mental or emotional state where something has occurred. So there's an adverse reaction or a circumstance or a set of circumstances that causes either a physiological or some type of reaction in your body, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Anxiety is a feeling of, worriness or unease. And so what we want to do is talk about the stress, like life stressors and things of that nature that may cause you to go into a state of anxiety. And we kind of want to catch it before we get to that point. So those are some of the things that we will be going over today. All right? So stress is the body's reaction to a challenge. There are some good stressors and there are some bad stressors. So all stress is not terrible. Some stress may be helpful to you. The right kind of stress can sharpen your mind and reflexes, or it may help your body perform better, For example, you may have an exam coming up, and maybe a day or two before the exam or prior to the exam, you have a dream that maybe you missed the exam. How many of you have ever had that dream or something similar? Yeah. And so what happens is it gets you kind of nervous, but what you do is you actually prepare. So if we're hopeful that it didn't occur after the exam. But if that happens to you, what will happen is that now, during that exam, some of the things that may happen is you may get to that exam 2 hours early now, instead of being, close to the time or being late. You may actually open up a book and study a section that you think you haven't, internalized well. So that type of stress is what we consider a good stress, because it caused you to be aware. Your body produced something that caused you to be aware to better prepare yourself so that that circumstance would not happen to you. And then also, maybe danger. You're walking down the street and maybe you get a sense or a feeling of your awareness. Maybe you hear something or feel that something is not right. So you may just turn your direction and go the other way, or, make a call or act like, hey, something's wrong. And that could prevent you from going into the situation that may not, have resulted positively. So those are situations where stress can be our friend. So let's talk about some of the causes of stress. Many of you have probably seen some of these causes, and being under a lot of pressure. Now, school in itself causes pressure, but when you add work balance, home life, responsibilities, whether it's taking care of children or taking care of elders or just other people, that can put a lot of pressure on you, and that can cause, a stressful situation. Big changes, facing big changes. What are one of the biggest changes we've had within the last couple of years? Has it been 2 years yet? Seems like it's been forever to me. Well, at least over the last year. Transitioning from the things that we had to do due to COVID. What about wearing a mask? All of you are masked here. Mine is right here. So that is a big change that we had to go through and learn how to communicate and speak and breathe and walk upstairs with mask on. Also transitioning from in-person classes to online courses. That was a big, big difference. And how many of you said before that, I just can't do online classes? I mean, I know I did at one point, but Look what happened. We were forced into a situation, that we had to meet those demands. So that can be a cause of stress. Worrying, there's a pandemic out. Am I going to get sick? And maybe you weren't even worried for yourself. Maybe you were worried for someone else that was more vulnerable. Are my children going to get ill? Are my parents going to be ill? Or someone, that's elderly in my family that has an underlying condition, not having much control over the outcome of a situation. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but you didn't have any control over what you had to do within the last year. You were told, hey, you got to stay in, can't go out much, you have to wear a mask, you have to take online classes. So the control, most of that was taken a bit away from you. So that can cause stress. Having responsibilities that you find overwhelming, isolation can cause stress. I mean, if you're an outgoing person or extroverted person, being in a house that you can't even get out, and sometimes it depends on who you're isolated with. I mean, isolation is supposed to be alone, but sometimes in your home, you may be isolated with that individual that you were really trying to take a little break from. So that can be stressful as well. And then times of uncertainty. This in our lifetime is, something that is just a major, major difference and an impact. So we may wonder, what's going to be the next big thing that happens? I sometimes do, because I would have never imagined that, this would have occurred, but it has, okay? So now let's get to some of those examples of the life stressors, now that we talked about some of the causes. And that list was just some causes. There certainly are many other causes of stress that you guys may have examples of. But some examples of our life stressors are the death of a loved one. And sometimes now with the media, maybe not even the death of, a loved one or someone close to you, but just hearing about so many individuals that are passing away from the pandemic or from other reasons. That certainly can be an impactful life stressor. Going through a divorce, or even further along on the list, getting married. Those are life stressors, whether you're happy that you're going through a divorce or getting married, or whether you're, just stressed out about it. Certainly it can impact you. How about the loss of a job or the loss of opportunities to work? There were greater opportunities to work, and I'm going to put that in the realm of our school environment, because prior to this, we were heavily on campus, and we're coming back to that, but there may have been a lot of student positions or ambassador positions or work-study positions that were diminished due to the pandemic, because we weren't able to be here at this time. Increase of financial obligations. Nothing lessened during the pandemic. We got some little boosts, but the prices of everything stayed the same, and now, in my opinion, they are really increasing. So we have the same, financial output, but as far as what we're getting, but everything is increasing around us, and that can be really, really stressful. And then moving into a new home, that's another example. And that can be stressful whether you are purposely moving into the home of your dreams or the apartment of your dreams, or whether you were just forced to move just because of a situation. Both can be stressful situations. So these are, again, mere examples of life stressors. You may have some more examples, but these are some that we've listed here. So continually, let's add some more things. How about chronic illness or injury? There's a such thing as long COVID. These are symptoms that are produced from COVID that linger on way past the time that, you have recovered from that. Or other chronic illnesses that you may have had prior to this that have exacerbated. And then going into the next bullet point, emotional problems. How many or how much do you think individuals with depression or anxiety, that has increased at this time. This certainly can exacerbate that. And along with that, maybe grief, guilt, maybe you were with someone who, got COVID and you didn't, and we don't even know the science to that. We don't know why one person gets it and why someone doesn't. We don't even know why one person reacts differently to it than someone else. But so many different emotional problems contribute to life stressors. We touch base on this. I think taking care of elderly or sick family, that's another stressor in itself. Sometimes your primary role, a lot of people that come to school will say, you know what, well, I'm taking care of my grandmother or, my aunt or whatnot, so I decided to take some classes. So now you're kind of putting two stressors together. And it can be done, but they are life stressors that could impact you. A traumatic event, such as a natural disaster, theft, violence against you or a loved one. We look at the news every day and hear about that. So that in itself is a stressor. And then we already touch base on the isolation and the inability to interact with others. Sometimes that face-to-face contact, like I am so happy to see you guys here face-to-face because I sometimes long to see that face-to-face interaction other than the virtual. And I am happy that we do have virtual, but the ability to interact with others can sometimes be helpful. All right, so what are some of the physiological reactions in your body that can be experienced by stress? And just to let you know, when you do experience these, hormones are released, which results in physical manifestations. So some of them are physical that you can see and that you're stressed out. And so when we have those on there, like your accelerated breathing or an increased heart rate, things like that, or flushed skin, or just, a nervous feeling. But some of them, are things that you can't see offhand, but they result in different ways. So when I ask myself, why am I, so many pounds heavier? Maybe a stressful event caused me to have slow digestion, and those can manifest in different ways. A physical way that you may be able to see it is shaking, trembling. What about tunnel vision? How many of you have ever experienced stress where it is the only thing you can think about, And so what that looks like in school, what that looks like in school is you have this major test coming up. You've had already some negative core belief. Let me give you an example of that. I've never been good at math. So now you have, it's like I'm speaking to you, huh? So now you have, this big, huge math test coming up that is 50% of your grade, and that's all you can think about. So now you're at home, kids need to be fed. Guess what? Get a Pop-Tart. Somebody needs to have something taken care of. You can't think of anything but this test. Guess what? You even have other classes that you need to be studying for, but you can't even get through that until you get past this test. So tunnel vision is definitely a part of that, physiological thing that happens to you when you're experiencing stress. And sometimes you may have like dilation of pupils. So somebody may think you're actually doing something else that you shouldn't have been doing, but you really are just stressed from something coming up. So those are some of the reactions that may happen to your body. So this is a diagram, and we're going to start with here. This is what we don't want to let our stress levels get to so that the end result can be the top of this particular pyramid. So this actually shows you, the whole life perspective of what stress can do to you and what it can cause. So it kind of starts out maybe in childhood. You may have had adverse childhood experiences, possibly not being coddled enough. Maybe you were kept in isolation, and not for even a bad reason or whatnot. Maybe just it happened, your circumstances, that's what happened to you in childhood. So when you're growing up or whatnot, guess what happens? It impacts you socially, it impacts you emotionally, it can sometimes impact your cognitive impairment. Maybe someone's born with a learning difference, or there's some cognitive issues during birth, but maybe not. Maybe emotionally something has happened, like early on, you've experienced a trauma, or just some non-consistency, a lot of moves and things like that. So you develop these emotional and social stressors that go in life as you're growing up. So what happens with that? Then you adopt some type of health risk behaviors. Now, what are health risk behaviors? So appropriate behaviors would be if someone knew that's what you were going through, they would go and seek, medical advice or professional advice to assist you. But not often do we get that. And sometimes we don't even know what's going on within ourselves. So guess what we may do? We may say, I see someone drinking a glass of wine each night to settle their nerves. My nerves are always rambling. Let me try a glass of wine. And then a glass of wine turns into two, and then it turns into maybe a shot of tequila, just to be a little stronger, and other recreational things that you may indulge in to self-medicate. So that's what that looks like. I can almost guarantee someone that you know that is heavily drinking or doing drugs, it is because of some unresolved issue that started with a life stressor. No one wants to medicate themselves with alcohol and drugs. I mean, most people who do that, they actually know the risk of it. But once they start to self-medicate, it's just kind of like a rut that you can't get out. So we want to talk about that as far as prevention before you get into that and do that and choose healthier options. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in our presentation and also next week. But what is a result of these unhealthy self-medicating things that individuals are doing to themselves? Long term, the results are disease, disability, and social problems. Who has that person that is always drinking that you don't even want to be around? Because you ever heard the expression, you can't talk to a drunk? That's really true. They're not in a state of mind that they're able to perceive what you're actually telling them, and it can exasperate, and it can make you upset with what you're trying to get to them. So that's not, that creates a social problem. And oftentimes, drinking and drugs will lead to loss of jobs, failure in school. You really can't function right, okay? Some people think that disease occurs a long time away, and they're like, okay, well, I'll deal with that when I get to it. But unfortunately, alcohol, those diseases are coming up more and more quicker and sooner than we think. And guess what? When your body is not healthy enough and you've impacted it with alcohol and drugs, guess what happens when you get COVID or some type of disease like that? Your body now has several underlying conditions because of the treatment that you've exposed to it prior. So those are other things that you want to look at when you're trying to keep healthy and strong. And then, ultimately, what this does is ends in an early death. So this is one of the things that we want to prevent, and this is why we're doing these series to help you learn about healthy coping mechanisms and suggestions to reduce stress before it gets to these points. All right, so factors leading to stress: fear and uncertainty. In almost every case, fear will always lead to stress. It does with every individual. Unless you're, how many of you know Dr. Hannibal Lecter? Is that his name? Unless you have something like that where your mind does not elevate whether you don't have fear, and that's a rarity, then you will have some level of stress. So these things can happen when you regularly hear about negative news through social media. I mean, I know everybody's on social media. Is that how most of you hear about the news nowadays? Yeah. I have to admit, social media gives me the news sometimes before I see it on, regular stream TV, because now I don't even watch the news. It's kind of depressing to me. And then with television, how it is, everything is live streamed, so we can watch when we want, what we want, when we want to. So regular TV is diminishing, so social media definitely gives us our, what I call sometimes fake news, because it's exaggerated. Sometimes it's real, but you get all the news and it's so exaggerated that you feel like a lot of it is happening. So violence in your own backyard, I mean, you can think back to a month. I know you've heard of something that may have happened in your neighborhood or a neighborhood that's close to you. And then if you add a global pandemic to all of this, it certainly can make you feel like you have no control over these events, okay? But what we want to do is learn how to reduce stress in things that are uncontrollable, because we know each day that we live what's going to happen. Something is going to happen that we have no control over and that is unexpected. That's a given. That is already going to happen. So for us to say we don't like change or we can't do anything if we don't have any control over it, then we would probably have to stop here today and not do anything else, because it's going to happen. So other factors that lead through, and to add to this, even though disasters are moderately increasing, they're overemphasized through vivid coverage in the media. So what that means is that when there is one thing that happens on the media, you hear it all day, 24 hours a day. Subliminally, that will affect you in your mind anyway. We're doing good to not even have just daily panic attacks sometimes with our media, because it plays it over and over and over again. And it can give a false presentation. Yes, it is real, and yes, it is dangerous, but the way the media portrays it, it is always not as it seems, that much, okay? The other thing is, bringing it back to school, is you could be worried that you won't finish a class project. I mean, that's a realistic thing. When you have assignments and you look at them with all your classes, even if the assignment is a month away, that month goes like this. And so now you're here 4 days before that project, and you just read, the first 2 pages of what you're supposed to do? And to add on to that, now you were supposed to go somewhere and watch some type of presentation, and now they're limited, so you have to find things to do. That can be very stressful. So being proactive actually will reduce a lot of stress. And sometimes not even having enough money to pay bills. That definitely is a stressor. All right, additional factors leading to stress. Now this one is key for, I would say, the younger generation. Attitudes and perceptions. So how you view the world or a particular situation can determine your cause of stress, okay? Sometimes an instructor may ask a question, and that instructor may ask the question where one student will say, I know the answer to this, and they will say, wow, I have a wonderful instructor. They explain things, they ask me and give me a chance to participate, and then I can show my mastery of that skill. So I feel really great. But then what happens if you perceive that instructor as picking on you? Maybe you're not prepared, maybe you're introverted and you just don't like being called on. And it just seems like this particular day, this instructor is calling on you the most. The instructor may have called on you twice, but it feels like, when the story gets to someone else, that instructor called on me throughout the entire class, all period. 2 times, but it was all period. And then, so your perception is that the instructor does not like me, I'm being picked on, I don't know this information, I'm no good at this college thing. But it's all about perception. So 2 individuals in the same class perceiving things totally different. So what we asked you is to look at it overall and look at external factors and see if you are perceiving this in the best way. Look and say, hey, did she call on me all period, or was it just twice? And was it my lack of preparation that caused me to think she was picking on me, or was it my personality? Maybe I can have a talk with the instructor. Maybe I can let her know. I get nervous answering things like that in class. Maybe you can work out something where that particular instructor will measure your skill in a different way, okay? All right. I already gave my own perception and attitude example, so I won't use the TV example. All right, so other factors leading to stress is change. Change is always a stressful situation. I mean, right now, if you had plans to go directly home after this session, and then I said, hey, you know what, you need to go out to the airport and then go into Brunswick to pick up a couple of things and then bring them back. Most of that would initiate some type of stress for you, because I don't know what else you have to do. Maybe that's your routine. Maybe you have to pick up your kids. Maybe you have to be home by a certain time. But if I say, you know what, it is mandatory for you to do this, that's going to add some level of stress. So that is a small life change. Any major life changes can be stressful, and we talked about this, even if it's a happy event. I mean, if you're planning, like, what if you're going to a party or planning a party? That is a stressful event. Sometimes individuals say, I just can't wait till this event is over. And when it's over, you feel great, but leading up to that, it was stressful, okay? Some of these examples I've already gone through, so I'm gonna go ahead and push through. But this is a really, really big one, especially with students in classes, unrealistic expectations. So how many in here think they're perfect? So when I ask that question, no one ever says, I'm perfect, because they don't think that they're perfect. But when they tell me that I need to get all A's in the 5 classes that I have, pick my children up, always be there for my husband, my children, my mom, and be available for my friends when they need me because I'm the person they lean on, what you're telling me through your actions is that you think you're perfect. So your words may say you don't think you're perfect, but your actions do. And you cannot be perfect. If you expect to do everything right all the time, you are destined to feel stressed. It's going to be a stressful outcome. So an example, like what I said before, desiring all A's in classes may not be feasible, depending on the course. If you are not that student that has received all A's through math throughout your entire life, chances are that math course may be a bit challenging to you. Also, coming from high school, maybe the way you were able to take your classes, it may have been more feasible for you to get A's. But college is different. You have to learn, the dynamics of it. It's a new teaching style. You have to figure out your learning style. So sometimes you may not get that A. And guess what? That's okay. You can get an A in a course that you have, more strength in. Or you can take that over and attack it and get the grade that you are seeking in some cases. And then sometimes, I know in college I was so happy to get a C in a particular class. That C looked like an A to me. So you can't have unrealistic expectations with everything without being overstressed. So, several types of stress. I'm going to go over these really briefly, and then we'll go over our second part. So, acute stress is the most common stress that a person will have. It's just like one of those life stressors that I said earlier that will cause you stress, okay? And this is something that everyone in life has went through. Even a baby, when they didn't get the bottle that they needed in time and was crying, that stressed them out. You know, where's my food going to come from? Where is my bottle? I'm hungry. So that's a little stressful. And these examples are examples we talked about earlier, the excitement before a fun event, but even getting into a car accident, that can be stressful. It's negative acute stress. Episodic stress is stressors that occur over and over again. So these are stressors that may be preventable but may not. Sometimes we cause our own stress, and they can happen over and over and over again. So these are the kind of stresses you want to reduce and try to change, like your environment, because this is accompanied with worry, and this can transition over into anxiety. So we want to minimize those, not chronic, that's the next one, those stressors that occur over and over again if we can help it, if you have control over it. If you are A-type personality, this is something that you may be prone to. And last is chronic stress. Now, chronic stress can be thought of as never-ending stress, and this is the one that will relentlessly wear at you. So this may be situational. This may be relational or emotional stress. You know, it may be your environment. If you're in an area where you feel danger and you can't move out of there, that will be putting you in a chronic position of stress. And until you can change that, that's what will minimize that, you know. Relationships, if you're in a relationship with anyone, friend, partner, parent, anyone that is unhealthy, that can be considered a chronic stressor. So you may want to evaluate and remove yourself from that. So stress eventually begins to affect your health. It can lead to heart problems, strokes, and even cancer, among other issues. I'm going to bring now our second presenter, my co-presenter, Dr. Webb, and thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really happy to be here to share with you some techniques and to share with you some knowledge that we've gained as professionals about how to mediate stress and identify it. And Ms. Husamuddin has given you a lot of great information about stressors and help you identify what they are in your life. And it's truly priceless information to be able to identify the stressors in your life. And I'm going to give you a little formula, barring health with stress. Most stress comes out of ACR. Your ability to have autonomy over your life, your feelings of competence, and your feelings of relatedness. Autonomy is that we all want some semblance of control over our lives. We all need to feel that we are making things happen in our lives, when in reality, as she has just went over, some things just happen. The other day, it rained unrelentingly. We had to turn our furnaces on again last weekend, and it's not even November yet. It's cold outside. Some things you can't, but most things you feel as if you need to have some control over it. And mediating stress helps you to manage that. Then the competency, as she mentioned the academics portion of it, You're much more stressed out if you feel that you're not equipped to handle the academic load that is in front of you. But that is something that can be rectified if you put in the time and reuse the resources that are readily available to you to actually acquire the mental acumen and the academic strength to be able to pursue and push on. And she addressed it eloquently too with competence. You're not always going to get an A. For me in school, the A for me with the struggle was English. I hate writing. Being transparent, I take a math class all day long. I still do not know when to use a colon or a semicolon in reference to a comma, and I have a doctorate. Thank God for a paid editor. Now, and the other part is this, R, the relatedness. A lot of the stress that students may have, not all, that they may have, and the stressors may be surrounded by some stuff that she spoke of eloquently. Oftentimes, we're immersed in an environment where we may not be happy with the individuals that we have to cohabitate with. Sometimes you can't fix that at that moment, but you have to make strides to try to elevate yourself to a situation where you can alter that situation. Sometimes we're immersed or deluged in an environment, even an academic environment, where you may not necessarily want to be on this team or this group or in this classroom with an individual. And oftentimes, this can be offset by maintaining healthy relationships. We don't have time to go into what a healthy relationship is, but that's a whole nother workshop. Check with us in January on what a healthy relationship is. No, I'm serious, because I know this myself, being a practitioner now for more than 30 years, that a lot of individuals are struggling and the stressors that they're encountering in their life that is causing them to underachieve and to remain being underemployed is strictly proportional to the quality of the company that they're keeping. I'm one of those people that really believe that bad company corrupts good morals. And oftentimes, a balloon could only fly as high as the quality of the helium that is in it. Somebody had to put the helium in it. Who gassed you up to be able to get you to where you need to go? We all need a support system, and that helps us deal with stress. And if we don't have one, we can start to have physical symptoms from stress that start to impede upon our ability to be able to enjoy our lives. We're talking about stress because stress will become so weighty on you if you don't learn how to handle it and ameliorate it in a manner that it will feel like you have a 400-pound backpack on your back, and you're pushing and you're stressing and you're pushing and you're stressing, and you're not progressing in the way that you feel that you should. You feel you have no control over your life. You feel no one cares, and you feel that you're inadequate in ways that you start to have physical symptoms. You may have issues with your bowel and your bladder. You may begin to twitch and to shake. You may miss menstrual cycles. You may get sick more often. Not that anybody should get sick, but the thing of it is, if your stress levels are so high, you're weakening or throwing off balance something that is in your body that is there to protect you. So it's important for you not to let your cortisol levels and all of the hormones and things that are involved with the generation of stress reaction in your body to impede upon your personal health. You can have reduced libido. If you're a college student, you shouldn't have a libido. But as an adult going on, you don't need a libido as a college student. Put it on the shelf, let it go. Wait till you graduate, get a master's degree, pick it back up. And also, too, if you're really stressed out, you can have chest pain that emulates that of cardiac arrest or tachycardia. You can have headaches. And also as a student, a lot of people have headaches because you're high on sugar. You've eaten a Snickers bar, you've drank 2 or 3 Pepsis, an energy drink, and everything else. You can overdo anything, but stress can emulate a lot of other illnesses that our bodies just don't have. I don't know about you, but there are 3 pains I really don't want to deal with. I don't want a headache, I don't want a toothache, and guess what? I don't want my feet to hurt. Because you can't really comfort either one of them if it's hurting. If your arm is hurting, you can hold it. You can get somebody else to hold it. Hand somebody your tooth and see how it goes for you. And then also, too, the physical symptoms of it. You can become nauseous, and that's before you eat something greasy that's disgusting and probably delicious. You can become nauseous. You can have muscle aches where you're tense. You can have trouble sleeping, and sleeping is foundational to maintaining good health. If you're not acquiring enough sleep throughout the night, and I'm not one of those people that believe in the 8 hours. I haven't slept 8 hours in so long, but I know I sleep at least 6. And since I'm getting old, I get 45 minutes on you at any given time that I can. Not at work. Never sleep at work. Now, you have trouble sleeping, and if you're really stressed out, you can have trouble digesting food. She mentioned that earlier. You can feel tired all the time. You know, people who are always, they just can't seem to ever get in a groove, to be able to push forward, to be able to do the things they want to do because they're just so tired. They're the kind of people that they know that they have front row tickets to the Cavs game. Now, let me make this really exciting to you. You have front row tickets to the Browns in the Super Bowl. Let's dream, y'all. And because you worked all day today, you sat down at home and now you can't get back up again. That's crazy and stress. You could have flush skin. On me, you might not see it as well, but it can happen. You could be clenching your teeth. That can cause other issues. But check this out. It can have cognitive symptoms too. Being stressed out and not managing it, I'm going to get to how to manage it in a minute, can cause you to not be able to concentrate. A lot of people treat math as if it is COVID or worse. If you ever want to clear a room, there are 3 things you can do. Get a rubber mouse and say math, and the whole room will dissipate fast. The thing about it is that if, in fact, you have good autonomy, you feel competent, and you have healthy relationships, oftentimes math won't be the issue. I'm one of those individuals that really believe that math is just a manifestation of some other stressors that you have because it's socially acceptable to not like math. You're in a big group of people if you say you don't like math. You got a fan club instantly. So the thing of it is, it's socially acceptable. But if you allow the stressors to mount to a level that you can't concentrate, then you're wasting your time studying it. And there are ways and tricks and techniques that you can contact the counselors with they can help you with. And you have trouble remembering things and deadlines. And I'm talking about the things you need to remember, not the things that you want to remember. You don't forget those. And you have chronic worrying. Worrying, actually, some would say, even shortens your lifespan. When you focus so much on trying to control things that you really cannot control, you lose precious time that you could spend acquiring the things in life that you deserve. There's just some things you can't control. Because if I could control the weather, it would never be below 60 degrees. It would always be between 60 and 100 wherever I live, but I can't control the weather. I would also, too, if I could control things, I would have been 6'5" instead of the height that I am. I would have stayed this good looking, but at 6'5" and this good looking, it would have been a mess. And everywhere I went, I would have caused stress. So they're just things that you just can't control. You have impaired speech. If you're really stressed out, you sound like Emma J. Fudd. You can. Things can happen. And you need to make sure that you're ameliorating the stress in a manner that it's not taking care of you. And sometimes we get it stuck as a broken record. Y'all may not know what that is, but I do. Or a cassette or something that just keeps rewinding. I failed the test. 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 That's not who you are. And you didn't fail at life. You failed the test. Because there were some tests that you passed. There were some things that you did really, really good. We have to stop focusing on the things that are broken and find a way to fix them in a manner that we have the things that we have mastered. Everybody's good at something. Actually, everybody's good at several things. But check this out. They're behavioral symptoms. And I'm into behavior. If you're stressed out, you change your eating habits. You may eat too much, as people did with COVID. I didn't. I lost 40 pounds because of COVID. Because I wasn't moving around the house, so why would I sit there and eat cheeseburgers all day? Besides the fact, I'm getting old. I ain't trying to shorten my life. I'm not giving up that way. People change their sleeping habits because of stress. They start to increase their drug and alcohol use, even drinking. Things like caffeine is not good all the time. They start biting their nails. And with COVID, and you touching surfaces and cleansers, never bite your nails ever again. People start pacing. And check this out. They have abnormal failure or delay to complete everyday responsibilities. This is one of those ones that can actually cost you money. Some of us know what it is to forget to pick your child up from daycare and get fined. There are just some things you have to do, and if you're stressed out, you lose track of these things. You lose track of things in your job, lose track of things in your personal life. You start to isolate yourself sometimes because you know that you're out of phase with where you used to be. See, we have to learn how to manage stress, and I'm going to get to that. And sometimes, because of stress, you start lying. No, let me take that back. You get better at lying. Most people have mastered it anyway. Nobody listening to this tape besides me has ever told a lie anyway. But the thing about it is that they lie because they're trying to cover up inadequacies that they feel they have so that they can try to fit into a system that was already embracing them, but they pull themselves back from it because they feel inadequate and that their life is out of control because they're not managing the stressors that are in their lives. And sometimes, the younger you are and stuff, it can manifest as trouble getting along with people. And that will be fixed. You don't have to worry about it. Now, some of the emotional symptoms that come along with stressors are these: less than normal patience. I don't know what normal patience is, but I do know that it's clinically in here. You become impatient. You feel sad. You feel depressed. And depression, I don't have time to get into it because I hear people saying they're depressed all the time. Sometimes you're upset. Sometimes you're grieving. All of this will pass. And understand, I'm not diminishing the importance or the significance of depression, but oftentimes we overdiagnose ourselves to make ourselves to be something that we're not. You're just having a bad day. And oftentimes people who are stressed out feel overwhelmed, they're restless, they can't get enough sleep, they're reduced to limited desire for activities they once enjoyed or regularly have participated in. For me, for instance, I know myself that if I stop eating, something happened. And I'm going to go to sleep. Don't even worry about it, whether you like it or not. It's just who I am. People become irritable. They just got to be isolated. And they start creating issues in their lives. You could be my really good friend. You could be my really good friend. But because of stress, I start pushing you back. And you're trying to help me, but I'm pushing you back. Mostly because I feel that I don't have the autonomy or the competence to be able to relate to you because I'm so stuck on the stressor that I'm missing out on life. So this is how stress dominates our life if we're not careful. And you have a tendency to always look at the glass as half empty as opposed to half full. We have academic counselors on this campus and psychologists at all of Tri-C campuses that are there to help you mediate or learn how to deal with these issues that may arise. Really? There we go. Now, everybody has outside pressures. And just like Ms. Husamuddin said, everybody has stressors. And believe it or not, as people have said on TV, you hear people, you can live stress-free. I don't know what planet they're on. I'm not even sure if they're inhaling a controlled substance or street something. It's impossible to lead a life without stress. Some of you are stressed out if you walk into McDonald's now because the menu is up on the wall and you act like you've never been in there before because you don't know how Big Mac tastes today. Stress could come anytime, anywhere in our lives. And when you start reflecting upon where you've been and where you're going, you can do these things that cause you stress. And we have to be careful on how we live our lives. And we have a Student Accessibility Services Center that is part of this college too that helps individuals who may have a documented disability. That could be a stressor for some, but I've seen some that's really silky smooth with handling it, and they're not a disabled person, they're a person with a disability. That'll hit you later. But to defeat anxiety, you use relaxation techniques. You find yourself tensing and get anxious through a test. Some of that is normal. You should be a little concerned about a test when you're about to take the test. That means you care, and you're not wasting your tuition money or your parents' tuition money. That means you need to relax, take some deep breaths. You don't think about fear. This is something too. People try to say you can live without fear. No, you can't. If a hungry lion was running around outside, I would be a little afraid. And if 2 or 3 of them was out there, I'm not going home today until 2 or 3 of y'all that's just got to test the water. They won't eat me. Well, why they eating you? I'm going to get in my car. Thank you. So we don't focus on fear because fear is a part of life and everybody's afraid. It's what you do when you are afraid
that really determines how far you're going to go in life. You're always going to feel trepidation and anxiety if you're progressing in life and you're doing something to better yourself. You should, because you're coming out of this comfort zone. I really don't like that. And it's not, and some people are anxious or under stress because they say things that are self-defeating in the fact that I'm the smartest one in my group. If you're the smartest one in the group, you're the one that's losing. I don't want to be the smartest one in my social circle because I need somebody to pour into me as I pour into other people. That'll hit you later. If you find yourself tensing and getting anxious, you can do this thing where you do progressive muscle relaxation. We don't have time, but you tense up, let go, tense up, let go, different parts of your body, and it's guided. And you can also, too, take 10 deep breaths real slow. If you do not have asthma, COPD, or any other medical condition that would prohibit you from participating in breathing exercises, I have to say that. And stop focusing on things. You need to practice self-care. Exercise if you can. Sleep is good for you. On the weekend, after you go to sleep for a long time, instead of running to the club, run to your desk and do some work. Lighten your load for the next week. Eat right. A lot of people don't understand that if your body chemistry is thrown off because you have too much of one food group, the junk, sugar, 0-calorie stuff that tastes really good, you can't concentrate because your body is malnourished. And we need to eat foods that are healthy. We need to get some healthy grains, I know, I'm going to say this word, even though it's rough for me to say it. You're going to have to eat vegetables. Yeah, I said it. It was stressful for me. I just started eating vegetables. I didn't see a reason for them. They're green. But I don't eat money, so why would I eat a vegetable? But you need to eat vegetables. You need to find something that is healthy for you to eat. And there are just some things that I'm not allowed to say right now that we eat daily we should not eat, like potato chips. And we need to practice. Before you take a test, relax, relate, release. Go sit out there on one of those beautiful chairs or somewhere and just kick your feet up and listen to some music without, if this still exists, music without cussing and intimations and statements that are degrading to women and people. But there is some soothing music that is out there that you can listen to. Sit back, relax. Get involved in a senseless conversation with somebody so that you don't focus on the things that are going to stress you out. Laughter is good for the soul. Even if you're corny, laughter is still good for the soul. And short walks are good. And if you really want to do a challenging walk, take $100 bills to your back and run around certain neighborhoods and see what kind of attraction you get. And see how fast you can move through those neighborhoods. Or even better, tie a stake to your leg and let some dogs follow you. You'll move fast. Approach this with confidence. The thing what a lot of people struggle with is that they're allowing the scripts in their head and the things that have happened to them prohibit them from moving forward. And it's exacerbating the stress because there's not one of us that is here today presenting or anybody here at this college with all these letters and stuff we have after our name. We have failed. We have overcome. We have been broken. We have been beat down metaphorically and sometimes even physically. We all have stumbled and we all have experienced stress. We all have had our back against the wall and didn't know what to do, so much so sometimes that we just fell down on the wall. But the truth in the story is that you can get back up. And you must not let the situation define you. You must let it refine you. We all gonna have travesties. And this right here is where I'm going into. Be careful where you go when you are in school, and be careful where you go when you're not in school. If you really want to decrease the stress in your life, sometimes you got to change the people you go around. You got to change the places you go, and you have to change the things that you do. Be careful who you associate with. Now, because of the advent of social media, people are creating stress that they don't even have to have. Do you know how many guys went down for not paying child support because they were stupid enough to post the pictures of them with money on Facebook and got caught and arrested? Do you know how many people have went down because of, why are you putting all your business out on the internet? I don't need you to know when I'm not at home. The people that live with me, sometimes I don't want them to know when I'm not home. So why do I need a perfect stranger to know when I'm not at home? You need to be careful who you associate with, because if you're associating with people that are a weight on your back, then you will forever be stressed out. You need to have people that are going to hold you accountable. You need to have people that care, that's going to pour into you. People that are going to tell you the truth, but going to do it in love. People who are going to say, you need to finish that paper. You don't need to go over there and smoke no Black and Miles. You don't need to go to the trap house. You need to go into the schoolhouse. You need to spend time edifying yourself, not devastating yourself, doing things that society has said supposed to be fun, when in reality, you're here for a credential. You're here to get a certificate. You're here to advance your life. And those are supposed to be stressful events, because any of us with degrees know that. But once it's over, the stress dissipates. I noticed I didn't say it went away. But it dissipates and it becomes manageable. And be careful to not focus so much on your past. What's back there, you can't fix. You can't fix it. But you can define your future. You can't fix what happened. It's done. It's history. But you can define your future and rewrite it. And be careful not to let your if dominate your persona. This is me. This is not Tri-C or any of its constituents. But it really irritates me when I talk to people and see news programs and people are interviewed and they say, if I had been in that building, I just want to smack them. You weren't in the building. What about the people that were? If I was 6'5" and this good looking and retired from the NFL, would I be in Cleveland now? See the point? Y'all laughing at me in my face, but still, if is a myth that you don't have to follow. You're in the here and now. I'll never be 6'5". I'm almost 60 years old. I'm not growing anymore. If anything, I might go the other way. It's not going to happen. The thing of it is that, and don't be afraid to say no. Stress comes in with people. Sometimes you got to say no. And some of y'all know you got to say no the ghetto way. I can't because this is recorded, but they will get the point. You just got this. I'm not doing that. And I'm not doing that. And we can't be worried all the time about how people are going to perceive it, because when we start worrying so much about other people's perceptions that we lose concept of who we are and our dreams and hopes and desires, then we start to diminish ourselves in a manner that we create a stress on ourselves, because we're repressing ourselves so much to make somebody else happy that we become depressed. Because we know we can be better, but we won't do better. That's a stressor that you don't need. Say no. I ain't doing it. No. You should practice it. Anybody here with me? Just say no out loud real quick. No. Say it like you mean it. No. And see how refreshing it is? And realize you can't control every situation. Those of us who raise children, you can't control them all the time. You just know what they won't do when they're in front of you. Truth be told, I know you got people grown trying to control grown kids. That's a joke. It is what it is. You teach them, trust them, and train them. Now, the thing about it is you can't control situations. You can't pick if your instructor speaks clear English. You can't control what time the class starts if you register late. You cannot pick the temperature in the room. You can't control the work that's coming and how it's coming. You can't control these things, but you can control, as she said so eloquently, your perception of the events to reduce the stress. Everything don't have to be looked at as ugly. Some stuff just ain't cute. Remember she talked about acute? Some stuff ain't acute, but it can be done. Because if you don't manage it, it will manage you. Then it becomes chronic. So with all that being said, I have concluded my presentation. And at this point in time, we're going to entertain questions. And if you have a question, you're here, please go to the microphone so the audience can hear it. As we welcome Ms. Hussamadeen back to the podium.
Please feel free to give her all of your very difficult questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Webb and Ms. Hussamadeen, for that wonderful presentation. We do have a few questions from our virtual audience. First, we have, what techniques do you recommend to deal with chronic stress, especially when the factors or circumstances causing stress are out of your control?
You get the hard ones.
So that's a great question. You know, if circumstances are out of your control, what I would start with is seeking what type of support systems are within your reach. So what I mean by that is, I'm assuming you are attending school, some of the Tri-C resources, some of our supportive offices to see what can be offered, like our counseling and psychological services. But even outside some of the community partners, you may want to look to see what they can suggest as far as giving you techniques to deal with reducing stress if the environment you're in or the situation you're in are not controllable until they are within control. So most things are only uncontrollable for a temporary amount of time. Not all things, but most things. So what that individual should be gearing you towards is a plan of action to release your stressors while you're in the situation, but also working on a long-term plan to change that particular situation overall.
And the only thing I would add to that, it was so eloquently stated, is this. Everybody needs to find something to do that they like to do. That helps ameliorate a lot of stress. And the other thing I will say for this is that oftentimes when we think, I don't have time, I grew up in a very problematic household and childhood, and I've been homeless, dejected, and left for dead and everything. But I tell you this, that oftentimes some of the stress that we have is because we're trying to make someone assume a role that they were never fit to have. And in life, one thing I've learned with several of my other friends, you can't choose your relatives, but you can choose your family. And if you don't understand that, for $150 an hour, make an appointment with me. And I will explain it to you. And I want it in nickels. Nickels, new ones. All right? Just understand that.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, how can I tell if I am experiencing normal sadness or something more serious like depression?
You want me to say this one, don't you? I saw the look in your eye. I would highly recommend, as we said, this is a workshop to acquaint, not to diagnose. We said that in the disclaimer. I would highly recommend that you make an appointment with somebody like myself, one of the campus psychologists, or a counselor from one of the campuses, because there's a thin line, and it really depends on the person. There are some generalities, but I would rather talk to you in person before we make that determination, because oftentimes it could be grief, it could be displaced grief, it could be several things that could be causing you to feel that way. But I will tell you this on the upside, as long as you're experiencing emotion and you're aware of it, you're on the right road.
And another question we have is, how would you recommend successfully reframing our thoughts, since so many of our thought patterns and behaviors are so deeply rooted?
You gonna take this one, or you want me to get started?
Well, I always want you to add to it.
Oh, go ahead on, do your thing.
But I think that's one of those things we were talking about earlier when individuals, all of us, we have these core beliefs, and that may be attributed to one of those negative core beliefs that you have taken on somewhere in the past. And so with that, what sometimes counselors may do, Dr. Webb or myself or someone else, are some cognitive behavioral techniques to get you to try to change your core belief. So what you would do is, do little exercises as far as, positive affirmations, doing some readings and things of that nature. But to get a little deeper, I'm gonna let Dr. Webb take this. I would suggest certainly, meeting with someone, a professional or someone here, so that they can go ahead and give you, some of those techniques to practice. It's not something that I find happens overnight. Like, you won't just wake up in the morning and say, oh, I feel good today, so I'm no longer going to think that way. No, it does take practice and purpose, but it can be done.
I'm gonna have a little fun with this one. We all know about the internal combustion engine that is inside of a car. It takes gas for it to run, right? This is where you say yes. All right, now, suppose you go to a gas station that's mixing the gas with water. Will your car run right? You can say no. Keep it clean. Just say no. We practiced that earlier. No. All right, now, if you have really good gas, the car will run what? Very well. One of the things we have to understand when we're dealing with people and we want to change our perspective and our outlook on life is that oftentimes you went to the wrong gas station to get your fuel, to get that car running. Sometimes we're going to the wrong people to get the positive affirmations that we need and the connection and the affection and the attention and the direction that we need, because the people that we're going to are at a deficit. Misery loves company. This is why in a collegiate environment such as this, and sometimes in environments, oftentimes we need to seek out people who are energetic and achieving. This is why mentoring, this is why caring for other people is so essential and important, because you will always do what you see until you see something else. So in essence, if you go to the right gas station, you might come in walking like this. But if you go into the right gas station and someone starts telling you that you have ability, you have skill, you have worth, and they can point out your greatness and help you to understand what it is in due time, then you will run like a race car instead of a hoopty with 3 tires. If that made sense to you, attitude, association can change by the people you're around, the places you go, and the things you do.
Thank you. And we have one more question from our virtual audience. How can you change the people you are around when they are people that you're living with?
I don't necessarily think you can change the people that you're around. So I think you have to start with changing yourself. So if you are living with individuals, you actually have to make changes within yourself to be able to deal with the individuals that you're living with until you can change yourself completely out of that environment. But we often are never successful at changing other people, because other people change because they want to change, not because of what we do. There's nothing we can do to cause them to change. The only thing we can do is change ourselves to better be equipped with that situation.
What was the second question again?
How can you change the people you are around when they are people that you're living with?
Well, one thing, I can relate to this a lot because of how I grew up. And when I was at home, I got enough of what I needed from other people's homes and teachers and some of my friends' parents. Now, remember, this was in the 60s and 70s. I got enough hope poured into me from other places. I was involved in activities, sports teams. You do things that are healthy and wholesome to get you what you need so that when you go home, you're covered. and you'll be able to endure. Because the one thing I can tell you is somebody who did hate going home, if you know what you're walking into, your perceptions and your expectations should be aligned to the situation that you're in. So when you're not at home, have yourself a good time. Surround yourself with people that are wholesome, that you want to be around. I can't tell you how to live. No one can. We can help you. And when you go home, you have enough Kevlar. You have enough flak jacket. You have enough wherewithal to endure the barrage of verbal castigation, the long parties, the kicking it, all the cussing and fighting and stuff that may be going on in the home until you can leave. But if you know you're in a situation like that, you must always, like me, I left home at 18, and guess what? I never looked back. And so you have to start thinking about, how can I get out of this with the least amount of collateral damage? Because sometimes you have to endure certain situations. And don't look at it from the fact that you're suffering. Look at it on this issue, look at it this way, this reframing things. Sometimes you got to go through to be prepared to get to the next destiny that you have. Everybody can fight till they get punched. Once you get punched, what do? And if you can take the punch and roll with it and strike back or defend, and you keep pushing. I'm not saying go in your house and start fighting either. What I'm saying is that you're in a turmoil, possibly now, from what you just said, I don't know. You may be in a problematic situation. If it doesn't kill you, I really don't like this expression, it's making you stronger. I can say this because 2 weeks ago I buried my mother. My mother was never really a supportive mother. But it was a hard thing for me to stand up there in that pulpit and say that, because she was never really, it was interesting that 9 of my siblings were here when we were around the front. And they came up and hugged me because we were all wondering, what can you say? Even if you've been in war, there was something that you gained that was beneficial for you to use down the road. For instance, when I told them, by us moving so much, I can pack a house up in 20 minutes. That's a skill. I know how to survive everywhere. That's a skill. I know how to survive on a little bit of nothing. That's a skill. So in essence, instead of focusing on what you perceive to be losing, try to incorporate some of the things that you're gaining. Because as you mature in age, you're going to look back, and you might even laugh at the situation and see that it was ugly while you were in it, but because you went through it, you now have a beautiful future. Because all 9 of us have college education and working professionally and independently, and we all at the point now of talking about retiring. And only one has been to jail, and that's what he wanted to do. And we just grew up the street from here. We're literally up the street from here.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Dr. Webb. And that is actually, those are all of the virtual questions that we have. Do we have any questions from anybody in the live audience? If so, please come on up to the mic.
You dig? So, I'm a full-time manager at a restaurant, and I'm a full-time student as well, right? So, working and doing school is okay for me because I did it before, and I'm getting along. But every time I think about the subject English, it gives me a headache. Literally, like every time I sit down to do English, it's like, that's a no. It's a no. I take 5 classes, pay my tuition, like everything, I pay myself. But English just gives me straight-on headaches. Like even though I do English before I go to work, I wouldn't do it. If I do English before I go anywhere, I can't do it. Because I know straight off the bat, I can get a headache.
English your second language, and are you talking about writing English or speaking or the whole gamut?
Okay, writing English specifically. And English is my first language.
English is your first language?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you want to learn, or you want to see what you can do to reduce your headaches and your stress
Yes.
when it comes to writing?
Yes.
You have any money for that paid grammar? No, I'm just kidding.
I have the funds.
I'm just kidding. So I think what you have to do is break it down. It sounds like, and forgive me if I'm assuming, that you've had challenges with this subject in the past? Okay. So I don't know if you have done so, but part of the presentation was you may be able to visit Student Accessibility Services to be accommodated. The other thing, and I'm sure you may have tried this, was that we do have the Writing Center, we also have the Tutoring Center, and they have excellent services virtually now where they can meet with you one-on-one and to assist. A lot of times what I find too that I suggest to students, and I do work in student accessibility services, is going on to some of the, and you are the only person who knows that you do this, going to some of the school websites, like the K through 12 school websites. They have excellent examples of, writing skills, and they break those down in more of a simplistic form that reaches out to you. And sometimes at the collegiate level, you already have to have those skills, and you're kind of like, just have to write. You have to know that expectation. So if you go to some of those websites, they can kind of meet you where your skills may be at, and then it will show you some of those techniques. But the other thing is some relaxation, because I think now that you don't feel good about your English skills, probably because of past experience. So we need to change some of those beliefs, and as Dr. Webb said, focusing on your strengths or, what you are good at. By you working full-time, you say you manage? By you being a manager there and working up to that point, then you have some strengths in English. Maybe not the writing portion of them, but you certainly have some strengths in English. So what we need to do is hone in on those and, learn how to translate those over into the written portion. Would you add anything else, Dr. Webb?
I can tell you what I was taught to get over it, but I don't know if it works. What I was taught, that was a real problem for me too in college. It really was. I saw no functionality in writing because I was like, I'm never going to write a book. I was a math science person, really. I'd rather take a physics class. And I did, to avoid taking English. I hated English. It was like having your teeth pulled without any anesthesia or whatever they give you to stop the pain. But the thing of it is this, is that what I've done is that what I had to do, one of the tutors at the school told me to actually get a study buddy. Since I was so good at math and science, I found someone that was a weakness. And we tag teamed. And she helped me with English, and I helped her pass her math to become a social worker. And she's still working as one. But you have to study buddies, because we can't work in isolation, because don't look at it as a weakness, look at it as something you just need to improve on. And the thing of it is too, another thing that I've done is that he helped me identify the time of day that I'm most alert. For me, I'm most alert at 3 o'clock in the morning. I found that out. Took me a long time, but I found that out. And working on my graduate degrees, that's when I did all my writing. I could do stats any time of day, but I could do my writing at that time. Find out why. I know you're wondering why that time, because I'm fresh, I'm alert, and I just write. And one of the things too that I had to realize is that the first time I write something, it's not good. The second time I write something, it's better than it was, but it still ain't good. The third time I write something, it's starting to make sense. And another technique he taught me too is to find someone that has no idea of what I'm writing about and get them to read it. And listen to them humbly. Let them rip it apart, because this is your grade. Find someone who has no idea what you're writing about and let them read it. You know who my best friend was when I was in school back then? A 12-year-old little boy that lived next door. Because if I could get him to understand what I'm putting in this paper,
If Tim could understand this paper and give me an idea what I'm talking about, I 99% of the time had an A paper. Then I would get with my friends and them to help me with the grammar, and it's just a system. It's gonna take some time, but guess what? The more I did that, the better I got. Am I making sense? Yeah, use that village, man, because trust and believe, if you like me, you're probably good at math. So you're highly marketable. You're a very sought after man. Right now, by saying that, you're a multi-million-dollar model. You're a rock star, because there's more people that cannot do math than there is that cannot write a paper. We are oddities, but you have a skill set that someone will team up with you with, and y'all will blow up and get up out of here. Don't try to do it alone. We all need somebody. And sometimes I even read stuff out loud to myself. Well, she can tell you that now because she works with me. I read stuff out loud to myself to make sure it makes sense, because everything sounds good in here. But when I put it on paper, not so much. So those are some techniques you can try. If not, you can always make an appointment with one of the counselors. We'll be happy to show you some more. I got a bunch more. But it can be beaten because I beat it. I've beaten it. It can be beat, man. Trust and believe. And then when you graduate and you become rich successful, you can pay somebody to write for you. No, but, no, for real, y'all laughing. But,
Thank you.
all right, sir.
Thank you for sharing your question. Anyone else from our live audience have a question? Looks like it, okay.
So I actually have a similar issue with English being very difficult for me. Not because I'm not good at the grammar or mechanics or even writing a paper. I can do it. I can. It's fine. Except the motivation to do it and the stress because of the amount of time it takes is really what I struggle with. And sometimes it's really hard to kind of herd the cats in my brain to just sit down and do a paper because it takes so much time and it stresses me out so much, even though it's just like a task that I can just get through. I don't really have as many, like with the actual content, I will submit it to Smart Thinking one time and then I'll revise a little and then I submit it and I'm done. But it just takes so much time that it's really hard for me to just sit down and do it. With math, it's fine, it's whatever, I just feel like I'm getting through it much faster, but English feels like a slog and I don't know how to push through that motivation barrier as well. If anyone has advice for that.
So do you ever record yourself when you are writing papers? And that actually is for you as well. Like what I mean by that is, sometimes students have what's called writer's block, even though you're not writing a book or anything, but it's like a block. And it gets kind of confused with motivation as well, because you just, you can do it, but how do I start it? Or then it almost manifests to I just don't feel like doing it and I just can't get going with it or whatnot. But sometimes I would say even you can do this on a smartphone or whatnot. Tell a story. So just like if I were talking to you and you were conversing with me, explaining to me, like if I said, hey, what do you have to write your paper on? You probably could go for about 5 minutes about what it's supposed to be about and how it's going to start. So my suggestion is to record yourself, like saying that. Just start on a paper. Just start like, hey, if I was going to write this paper, this is what I would write. I would take this, I would do this, because you don't have to worry about the editing or how that comes out at the time. You just want to really have a conversation like you'd have with me, but with yourself, recording it. And what that will allow you to do, and you can add on to it, so maybe, throughout the day, if you think of something else, you can go ahead and record that. And then what that does is it gives you some dialogue later on that you have recorded so that you can listen to over again and start typing it in. Again, there's so many things that can help you with the grammar portion of it, and, the correction of it, and even, the words and spelling. There are things in the computer, there are free things for that. But the idea, if you kind of act as if you're having a conversation, it gives you content, and it may help with some of your motivation. Motivation is a challenge. Sometimes it depends on how many other classes you have, what your workload is. I know young man before you, he's working full time, so he, may not have a lot of time to set aside. But, how many times do you talk on the phone or talk to other people or even look at your smartphone? You don't have time for that. Well, if you look at that or whatnot, use some of those times and breaks to record. If you're at work, hey, record 10 minutes or 5 minutes of something. Record it when you're laying down. If you're laying down, just say, okay, well, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Every time you think of a thought, just throw it on there, and then you can listen to that over again. And that might start to motivate you in itself, like, okay, I've gotten some ideas here.
Oh, you wanted me to answer that, all right. No, what I'm saying is that, no. But I know this too, I've done this, I'm not gonna recommend it all the time. There are transcription services on the internet, some are costly, some are cheap. And what I would do sometimes, since that's the issue I struggle with, I do what she just said. I'll turn my phone on and I'll just talk about what I wanna write about, and then I email it to them, and they type it up with the grammar and everything else, and they send it back. It's not cheating because it's your work. And you may or may not use it, but your ideas are down. And since it's already a Word document, you can go in and edit it and do what you want to it, because you have the foundational stuff. Well, I do that now. I do a lot of speeches. And a lot of times when I'm just like at the airport or something, I was just talking to my phone what I want to say. I may see something over there. Hey, that's a good example, illustration, blah, 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 blah. And then I will put them all together, send them in, they'll type it back up, I got it, and then I can edit it, do whatever I want to do to it to get it to where I need it to be. There are ways, technology now is so much better to get around it. And the motivation for me, because of my disdain for English, is that I'm only taking it one time. I'm not repeating this class, although it did happen. But I'm not repeating it. I ain't gonna lie, it did happen. But I'm not repeating this class. That was my motivation in high school. That was my motivation in college. I'm not repeating this class. And so that was my motivation. Because if don't get me started. Yeah, my whole goal, that was my motivation. I will not do this no. And so that kept me motivated. I did that work first to get it out the way so I can do what I want to do. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Husamadeen and Dr. Webb. Those are great tips. I've done that. I've been driving in my car and just go. Any other questions for anyone else live? No, I think that covers it. There are no more questions in the chat. Thank you for participating today in our Q&A and attending our workshop. And thank you so much to Dr. Webb and Ms. Husamadeen for your wonderful, informative presentations.
Thank you all. Awesome.
Following in your footsteps, Dr. Webb.
No. These some big feats. All right.